Hey guys, it's Kevin again, and this is going to be my review for the season finale of Justified, Season 5, Episode 13, Restitution. And you know what, guys? I think this might be my favorite finale out of any of the Justified finales. This one had everything I really wanted to happen in this episode happened, and it was just very, very well done with a lot of the scenes, it really, really sets up the last season really well. Like, I'm really looking forward to next season now, because the way they set it up at the end of this episode, I think next season is probably going to be the best season because of just the way they set everything up. But let's just get to this one, because I absolutely loved it. Now, this episode, this is the one where everything connects. All three storylines connect. You know, they wrap up and they connect, and then they have something else for the characters to do. And everything was just really, really great in this episode. There was nothing in this episode where I'm like, I'm not happy with that. Let's just get started with it. So, Wendy's cuffed, and Tim asks why they're letting Daryl go. And Raylan explains he wants to give him enough rope to hang himself. Basically, Raylan wants to make him feel bad and then turn himself in. That's what Raylan's trying to say. Daryl comes in and threatens Raylan, and Raylan tells him that Kendall will be there soon for arrangement, and he says once he hears he's being charged as an adult, he's going to flip on him. He's mad that they're keeping Wendy. Daryl promises to get a good lawyer and come back, and he threatens Raylan again marches out, and Raylan tells Wendy that he's not coming back for them. She then tells him he's wrong and chastises him for ruining Kendall's life over one mistake. Raylan tells her she's wrong about Daryl, and that he will prove it to her. Daryl sits in his car smoking and angry, and then who confronts him but Tim. Tim is the one to confront him, and I really like that Tim actually had more to do in this episode. I enjoyed that, because everyone said all season Tim and Rachel have been useless this season, but they really had stuff to do in this episode, which I liked. Because they are great characters, but they just don't get enough screen time sometimes, and this episode they really did get a lot to do. Tim tells him where one is, and Daryl asks if he can follow him, and Tim explains that he's the one that won't be following him, and Daryl says sleeping in his car won't be comfortable, but Tim explains how on his second tour in Afghanistan, he slept on cold mountains, and says he'll be comfy watching his bitch ass from the comfort of his car, and Daryl tells him that if he wants to cuddle, he knows where to find him. That was actually kind of funny. And then we get Boyd. Now, Boyd, very, very intense here, because as soon as Boyd walks right into that bar, he sees Jimmy at gunpoint, and Alberto says, drop the gun, and Boyd says he can probably shoot him first, but then there's another guy with a gun. On Boyd. He's forced to give up his gun. They tell him that Jimmy tried to escape to warn him. Boyd says he's a good man. Alberto shoots Jimmy, and Boyd is just like, no, why'd you do that? And I thought that was a good scene when Boyd, kind of was just like, no, why'd you do that? And Boyd kind of freaks out and watches Jimmy die. And then Alberto reminds him that he was told there were to be no bodies left in Mexico for the bodies of those responsible for those deaths who will be found in the U.S. And Boyd is noticeably devastated by Jimmy's brutal murder. And they tell him that Wynn told them he killed him. And, I mean, Wynn lied to them last episode and said that he killed him, basically to protect Boyd. I actually thought Wynn Duffy was gonna die in this episode, but he didn't. There were still points where I'm like, I think he might die, but he didn't. They tell him that Wynn told them he killed him, and Alberto says he wants both him and Daryl by noon, and he says if he shows up with Daryl and on time, he'll favor Boyd with a quick death. They give him back his phone. Everyone's taking Boyd's phone at this point, and he scrolls to Raylan's contacts page, and quickly changes the name to Daryl and types, I have what you're looking for. Basically, he's going to kind of turn this into a rescue mission, get Raylan to save him, but get Raylan to pretend to be Daryl for all of them. I think that's actually a good plan. And then this particular scene was definitely one of my favorite scenes of the episode. When Kendall is sitting in a cell And Raylan tells him he just wants to talk to him off the record before the arrangement. And he asks Kendall if he wants anything, and Kendall asks for hot chocolate. He agrees, and then tells him offhand that he will be tried as an adult. And Kendall's looking at him like, what? And he's looking at 40 years of hard time in a federal penitentiary. And, you know, we all know that he's just doing this to get Kendall to confess that he did not do it and that Daryl was actually the one to do it. And I love this next scene. He brings Kendall the hot chocolate, sits down with Kendall, and asks if it would really be 40 years, and then says it's bullshit. And Raylan says nothing he can't handle since he grew up with Danny and Daryl. And Raylan tells him he's a stone-cold badass, so hard time isn't a problem. And he asks Kendall what the first thing he killed was. And Raylan actually goes back to this really great story now. I really like this scene because it was definitely not something I thought I'd, I really, really love this scene. I thought it was a fantastic scene. Basically, Raylan says that when he was 11, Arlo basically forced him to kill a pig, and he says feral pigs are nasty up close. He asks if he hooked the gator before he killed it, and he says Danny hooked it, and he shot it. And Raylan says it's hard to look something in the eye when you shoot it, and he says it's no small thing taking a life, you know, from that's the thing in the promo. And Raylan tells him he missed with the first shot because his hands were shaking so bad. He says it took him 3 shots to kill. If then came home upset and threw up, and his dad called him a pussy and beat him for it. He says it made him want to hurt his father, and Kendall asks if he did. He says he didn't, but that became a lawman despite his dad. And then he says when he became a marshal, and we know this is the truth, you know, he killed someone. That was the first scene we saw Raylan do. We saw the first thing we ever saw Raylan do was kill someone. And he says, you know, it was the pig all over again when he had to kill someone. You know, he felt sick to his stomach. And then Raylan asked Kendall how he felt when he shot Art. And Kendall says all he saw was a star on his belt and didn't mean to hurt anyone. So Raylan tells him to drink his cocoa before it gets cold and leaves him to think. So yeah, I really love that scene because it's really Raylan basically getting Kendall to feel bad for himself. And I just thought that was a great way of doing it. And I really love Raylan's plan this episode. As much as we didn't think he cared about Kendall, he really does care about Kendall. He wants this kid to have a good life. He doesn't want this kid to be 40 years in jail. He just wants to catch Daryl, because Daryl's the one that's done all this. Daryl's the one that's screwed up Kendall. So Raylan comes in to talk to Wendy, and she tells him that Kendall didn't do it. She asks what they can do, and he tells her to wear a wire and get Daryl to confess, and she's like, no, I can't wear a wire. You can't let me do that. And she says he will kill her if he sees a van outside, and says a wire's not an option. And Raylan says if she wants to save the boy, it's the only option. So Tim follows Daryl, who looks back at him in disdain, and again we have another Tim and Daryl scene. He speeds through red light. Tim tries to follow, but is struck by a crossing truck. And I actually thought there was going to be a scene where Daryl died, but it was actually Tim who got hit by the truck. I was kind of surprised about that. But then the Cardinal guy comes back after searching Audrey's, and Boyd says he told him that he wouldn't be there since he's laying low after the shooting the marshal. Boyd tries to make small talk with the other cartel guys and offers them work on the other side of the drug transaction. And then Alberto comes in, and one of the guys holds a gun on Alberto and says that Boyd promises them that the heroin partnership and a trip to Vegas. Alberto asks if that's all Boyd thinks they're going for, but then they laugh at him and tell him they've been to Vegas 6 or 7 times. They ask Alberto if he can take Boyd and put him in a cage, and that's what they did. They put him in a cage. Then Wendy calls Daryl, and she tells him that the marshals were lying about trying Kendall as an insult. She says they're going to sue the marshals, and he says that he can stir the pot. And she says that Daryl's going to hurt Wendy, and that he's in the world because he lost Tim in a spotlight. So Raylan heads out, but then he gets another text from Boyd calling him Daryl, and says he has what he wants, but the deal won't last forever. Alberto tells Boyd that time is up and asks if there's good hunting around there, and Boyd says somewhat. And Alberto tells him that his father took him hunting and taught him how to skin what he caught. And just, we get a very gruesome explanation here. He basically, you know, I don't even want to explain it because that was too gruesome. Boyd says he's experienced real pain that Alberto can imagine. He told him to quit running his mouth and do what he wants. Alberto starts to slice him, but then Boyd's phone vibrates with a text from Daryl that it says, to meet at his woman's place in the country, and Boyd tells him to say that they'll be there, and that's what he does. So then Nikki comes to sit by Ava and asks her what she was thinking. Ava says calling out Gretchen was better than having the whole prison after her. Nikki tells her that Gretchen's gonna kill her, and Ava walks over and attacks Gretchen's girls, and then goes for Gretchen. Chaos breaks out, and then the guards rush over. I mean, that scene just came out of nowhere. I mean, that was pretty big. And then Alberto looks at the photo of Ava and asks if that's his woman, and Boyd says it's not anymore. And then we get a huge gunfight scene just out of nowhere. We see a car pull up. Alberto tells them to check it in. Tim and Rachel pull guns on them, and Alberto pulls his guns on Boyd, who tells him those are federal agents and that they will take him out. Alberto comes out and explains that he has to take Boyd back to his boss, and that he will give them a chance to drive away unharmed. Tim tells them they have 3 seconds before they kill all of them. The guys fire. Rachel and Tim open fire. One makes it back into the house, but Boyd has grabbed a gun off one that fell in through the window and shot the guy who came back in gunning for him. Once again, Boyd has used the Marshal Service to do his dirty work for him. He literally was, and, you know, he was handcuffed at this point, so they're like, you're under arrest. He's like, there's nothing you can do about that. I thought that was kind of funny. But then Boyd is uncuffed and asks Tim if he's ever pulled off a shot with cuffs on, and Tim tells him not to shut up and says he doesn't need to since he's not a criminal. Rachel chews him out for walking them into an ambush. Tim says he used them to save his ass, and Boyd insists he kept Daryl Crow alive so 15-year-old boy wouldn't go to jail for life. So, Ava's in solitary confinement at this point. Rowena comes to treat her, and basically Rowena wants her alive, but says she needs to be prepared to fight every day until they let her out, or spend the next 5 days in solitary going crazy. And then we get a very crucial scene. This is the scene of the episode that really is the big climax of the episode. You know, after this, we pretty much know what's going to happen from here. But definitely, this was a huge, huge scene. Because we finally get the big confrontation between Wendy and Daryl. Wendy comes into Audrey's and Daryl's in there. He asks about Kendall, and she says they aren't going to try him as an adult. He offers her a drink, and she tells him no, and says she knows her son didn't shoot that marshal. She says she knows her son, and he says he knows him better. And he says he cares about family, and she tells him she knows he killed Dilly, but she understands, you know, Dilly, in the very first episode of this show that happened, in the very first episode of this season, I don't even remember that, until they mentioned it. Daryl yells at her, and she apologizes over and over. You know, basically she says, you know, she tells him she's there with him and understands. She says she knows he hit back because they killed Danny. And Daryl tells her he didn't plan on shooting Art, but it just happened. And he says he just figured it was better that Kendall go to juvie. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, she pulls a gun on him. And that, I was like, yes, finally, kill him, finally. And, aims it right at his crotch, and it is there, and Raylan comes up, and I love the scene where Raylan's like, hey, what did I miss? And that was actually pretty funny. You know, Raylan's just like, hey, what did I miss? And Daryl says she has a gun. Raylan asks what he wants him to do about it. Shoot her. He reminds that Wendy is his sister, and it's not his place to get in between family. And she shoots Daryl in the crotch, and then he comes at her, and she shoots him in the neck. So Wendy has killed Daryl, finally. And Raylan, you know, is actually happy with Wendy because he's wanted to catch a Daryl. That was his thing. He was going to sentence him to death anyway. And he tells Daryl, you know, I told you were going to wish I had killed you. And Daryl says, don't you? And that was how that ended. So now the whole Crow thing is over. And I'm really happy about that because that scene was just a huge scene. Again, it was the climax of the episode. And they really did a great job with that. So then Raylan comes to the hospital to see Art, Rachel, and basically we learn that Art is woken up. And that's really all that is. So I really enjoyed that scene, and I was happy that Art woke up. Art does not know, though, that Wendy shot Daryl, so, you know, that was pretty big. And then Winona and Raylan finally video chats with Winona, and he gets to see his son, and basically, he declines, and basically she's asking him if he's finally coming home. He says he can, he wants to be at the beach, and they recite the Crows, the Cardinal, and Win Duffy. Rachel clarifies that they are going after Boyd, and are going to bury him, and basically we find out that they're going to bury Boyd. Basically, that's their plan, is they're going after Boyd next season, and they're going to try to come after him, in case he does something bad. So, and then Raylan just says, why didn't you just say so? And I thought that scene was fantastic. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing them hunting down Boyd. It's going to be great to see. And then speaking of Boyd, we get our final scene with Boyd for the season. Boyd's repairing a shattered window at Ava's when he gets a call from his lawyer. Basically finds out Ava's being released. And he basically says the lawyer says the case fell apart, and then it puts Ava on the phone. And he asks if this is really happening and asks if she needs a ride. And she says the lawyer said he would take her. So she comes up to him, and the lawyer drives away. Boyd asks her if it feels good to be home, and she smiles. She asks if those are bullet holes in her house, and he tells her it's been a tough couple of months. He walks down to her and says he had something he needed to take care of tonight. And I just really like that they patched things up between them, so they're okay now, it seems. It seems like they're back together. And basically he says, where do we go from here? Ava says she's going to take a bath, put her pajamas on, and go to sleep, and she goes in. And then we get a very interesting scene with Boyd. Boyd shows up to see Wynn, and tells him he's been hard to get a hold of, and Wynn says he had to lie to the cartel. And Catherine's there too, and she asks him to please sit. She asks what he knows about her, and Boyd says he's actually done with the whole heroin thing. He's done with it. He thinks it's too dangerous. You know, after what's happened, he thinks it's way too dangerous, so he basically just tells her he's done with it. Basically, Boyd's, you know, but Wynn says they're not necessarily done, because Catherine says that she wants him to rob banks, not deal drugs, because she thinks he'd be really good at robbing banks, and that's how Boyd ended this season. And I really like that scene, because it's very, very interesting to see where that goes. It kind of came out of nowhere, but I thought that was a fantastic scene. And in the very end of this episode is Raylan and Ava. Basically, Raylan says he's going to ask her anything he wants. He tells her if he thinks she's not paying bail, he'll throw her back in jail. And she asks if this is where they will meet. And she tells him Rachel explained all the rules to her after the U.S. Attorney made her the offer. Ava tells him she's scared, and he tells her not to be, and says everything will be fine. He walks back to his car, and she to hers. And that is how this season ends, and I cannot wait for next season. It's going to be amazing. You know, Raylan's going to be hunting down Boyd. Boyd is going to be robbing banks. Ava's going to be somehow involved with Boyd. I'm thinking Boyd and Ava is going to be, I'm thinking they're actually going to work together, and I'm thinking they're actually going to die together, because next season's the final season. But let me know what you guys thought of this episode. I personally love this episode. It's my favorite episode of the season. I love the scene with Wendy and Daryl. Also, we found out that Wendy and Kendall are going to Florida, and Raylan's just not following them there because he's done with them, basically. And that's it for my review. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, it's been great. Justified's been a great season this year. I can't wait to see the final season next year. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you enjoy the finale too. Okay, bye.